business cards. There's some information if anyone needs it. So, everyone's ready? Well, we may as well start. Small towns, infinite futures. Welcome to Morgan. Thank you for spending some time here, and I hope you get some value from participating. I'm Jacob Gammertsfelder. My wife and I moved to Morgan in 2012. There is a quietness and a friendliness here that we enjoy. We are involved with Meals on Wheels, the Morgan Cadell Golf Club, the Morgan Lawn Bowls Club, the 8-Ball competition, Mid-Murray Support Services, and Morgan Fitness and Wellbeing. We have been involved in one-off projects such as the Save the Cadell Ferry, and in my spare time I enjoy working as a relief storeman at the Cadell Training Centre. Once upon a time I was involved with BHP in the steelworks at Whyalla. I was part of a team that created and commissioned the continuous caster project there. The caster was a 2-year and $250 million project. If we had failed, there would be no steelworks there now. Whyalla would have had a different future. I gave presentations at BHP and I enjoyed that challenge. A talk on industrial relations to a Prime Minister, or a discussion of refractories to a BHP chairman, or quarterly briefings to a couple of hundred people. What I found was that talking changes everything. Once you start talking about something, things change. Sometimes that change in talking is met with violent opposition, yelling and the throwing of fists and chairs. Change can be a difficult process. Being a resident of Morgan, I'm interested in its future. I felt compelled to do something and wanted to create a place where we could talk about the future of Morgan, which brings us here. I'll be talking mostly about Morgan because that's what I know, and each town is different and needs a tailored approach, with the overall goal remaining the same for all small towns: improvement. Making more people spend more time engaged with the town, even if it's on the internet. And since time equals money, that means they also spend more money in the towns. Let's begin. Planning and development issues are fascinating puzzles, from the town plan or simulation games of SimCity to the more serious issues nations face, such as Japan's ageing and declining population, which for Japan, that 25% of their population is over 65, and last year their population dropped by 200,000. Every place has their individual problems. Each group of people has differences. Each city and town are unique in their opportunities and difficulties. For Morgan, it has an outflow of people at high school age, and then again when people need more older age care. We do not have a high school, nor a retirement village, nor a nursing home. This forces young and old to leave Morgan. Let's have a look at matters more closely. Over the decades, Morgan has changed by diminishing, by losing parts of itself. Things like losing the railway in 1969 and losing its football team more recently are milestones of that decay. Loss of services such as healthcare and schooling are deeply felt losses that limit Morgan's ability to grow and make it more likely that Morgan will experience further losses. Social gravity is the main difficulty facing small towns. I'll give you an example of what I mean. When I first talked about giving a talk on small towns, it was suggested to me that I do the talk in Waikerie, not Morgan, because Waikerie has more people, which is ironic because the problem is in the small town. It's not further away where you'll get more of an audience. Social gravity is like Newtonian gravity. We become a compact group of people in cities because of the advantages. The closer together we are, the easier it is to have more options in life, for every choice in life. The further away from the denser collections of people, then the less choices we have. There are more choices in Adelaide than in Morgan. That's the gravitational pull we have to counter. But social gravity isn't just in the real world. We also see this clustering effect in the virtual world. It helps explain the massive growth of social media. Facebook is the prime example with its 1.5 billion accounts. However, we can take some heart from that, because this last phenomenon in the online world doesn't require petrol. It is unaffected by physical distance. That gives us in Morgan a fighting chance to grow by fostering an individual and interesting online presence. Way up near the North Pole is an empty country called Iceland. Just over 300,000 people live in this icy desolation. One company up there has 500,000 customers, each paying $15 per month. Why doesn't isolation bother this company? The internet. An online product has more customers than Iceland's population, brings them in 7.5 million per month. We can learn from that. To address our difficulties, what follows is a presentation of change management spread over several tiers dependent upon their complexity and time or dollar costs. It's a broad spectrum approach to change that encompasses continuous small step improvements while chasing down more difficult goals. This approach is taken because there are many obstacles to change. With a broad brush we can skip those ideas which meet resistance while continuing to build up momentum of successes. Let's get down to business. A business can remain in exactly the same physical location and yet have two totally different results with different management or cultures. Business cultures, which means the place doesn't matter. It's what we do that matters. And that is exactly the same for Morgan. What we do will change how successful Morgan is. In Morgan we see that best in how well the Celtics Roadhouse is doing under the new management of Kenny and Lucy Fry. Which isn't to say that the previous management were bad, not at all. It's merely that there are infinite ways of running a business. There is no fault nor blame attached, merely different ways of doing things. But it's the idea of fault and blame that stops us from changing. We don't recommend changes to others because the other person might take it as a criticism. So if we are unhappy as a customer, we walk out and never come back. It's the easiest solution. Suggesting change is taken as an implied criticism, a negative. Meanwhile, the business or town struggles on, wondering why nobody complains, but nobody shops there. Change is difficult. Why are we here tonight? We are here to change the world, starting with Morgan. But change is hard. We struggle to even change what we eat or drink or smoke, which should be as simple as not putting something in our mouths. Change in groups is exponentially more difficult. Change is difficult. Morgan is a small town that has had a busy, thriving past. Now, like so many other small towns, we're in a time of diminishment. This shrinking, this collapse of industry and population has taken place over decades. And that length of time tells us that others would have seen these trends and would have put their hands to work on stemming the tide, this outflow of people. Why has the decline continued? We can talk about dozens of issues that all have an impact. Change of technologies, the consolidation of government services away from regional areas, the cost of fuel, the lack of opportunities compared to cities, issues of isolation, less opportunity for education, lack of choices with healthcare, economies of scale, and so on we go. All these issues compounding upon the other, increasing their impact. The main issue is change, how we deal with change. If after these decades the trend hasn't been reversed, then it tells us that we need to change how we deal with change. The best thing to change is to create a visible aim, give a new direction for us to go, a goal. We need more people. So what's the easiest way to do that? The simplest solution. We would like Morgan to have 150 more residents in the next 12 months. There, done. Now we have somewhere to go. We have a mission statement. Morgan to increase its population by 150 people in 12 months. Now that we have a goal, let's talk about how to achieve that. When we talk about increasing population, and we aren't interested in the baby making process, we are talking immigration. We want people to choose to travel here to stay. So how do we make them migrate here? In other words, what do we have that they may like? We have a few resources. We are in a town of less than 1,000 people. According to the Melbourne University's Household Income and Labour Dynamics Survey, That puts us in the happiest group of Australians. We are in Australia. That's a massive bonus. We have companies such as riverlandfresh.com who source Riverland food producers and deliver to Morgan weekly with a very convenient online ordering system. This company is an example of the changes that are coming and that we can be part of. We have cheap land and housing around Morgan. That's not too shabby. We have a vast horizon of land to spare. We have a peaceful country environment. We have the fun of the Morgan Pageant Day with its amazing fireworks, which brings a few thousand to visit on the day. We speak English, a skill that other people are wanting to learn. We have a busy main road with caravans and trucks every day of the week. We have a ferry, a unique tourist icon in its own right. And we have a wealth of farming experience in the area. We have the mighty Murray River. We have the conservation areas around Morgan. We have plenty of sunshine. It never rains in Morgan. We have a long history, not just from the days of becoming a port, but back to Aboriginal history, before that to the time when we were at the bottom of an ocean. We have sporting areas such as the golf club, the lawn bowls club and the complex. We recently had the National Broadband Network arrive. The NBN is the start of having an internet service that is comparable to City Australia and helps us catch up to the rest of the world. The NBN could be a major tool in breaking down the issues of isolation and distance that affect us in the country. From this list we can see that we have some resources to work with. Let's get to work then. There are always small step improvements to be made, so let's get them started while we work on items that take longer. We have 3 rivers that flow through Morgan. The Murray River, full of boats and holiday homes, the Highway River flowing with caravans, and the Information River, which hypnotises people. We see them looking at it every day, sometimes all day, clicking away as they immerse themselves in this invisible river. We need to make sure our signposts on these rivers are up to date for all the travellers on those rivers. Currently we have vading signs which in a way mirror the state of the town, and we have signs that are out of date, and we don't have signs for very important things. People can drive through Morgan and not even see the river, yet we all know when it's the first time people have seen the ferry because they get their cameras out. They interact with Morgan. The ferry is fun and the most photographed part of Morgan. We need to make sure that people passing through know it's there. Signs are extremely important because we are intensely visual. We need to see things. The riverfront is our jewel. We should be highlighting it from the main street. That's what signs are for. That's why companies fight tooth and nail for their products to be at the eye line of customers in shops like Woolworths. First impressions are vital, both at the main street and the websites. We need people to see what is in Morgan. We need signs, and signs are low cost. Both the real and virtual signs. We are a pit stop for houseboats and caravans, and we want to make sure that people enjoy stopping over at our website. The grey nomads that travel Australia use tools like Google Maps and TripAdvisor to help them explore. We need to be up to date with those tools. Now we can change gears. We have made sure with signposting that people can see us. Now we have to make sure that what they see is good, that it invites them in, invites people to do something in Morgan. The first level of that is housekeeping and maintenance type issues. Is the main street attractive? Is the riverbank inviting? Is the website fun? So fix signs, put in sidewalks, fix potholes, make sure email and website links such as on Wikipedia are correct. And if the Riverland Visitor Survey report suggests toilets at the camping spots, which seems the biggest takeaway of the report, then you build some toilets or install some portaloos. Perhaps a local contractor could hire or lease them with a coded passkey. Maintenance stuff done. The next level is having things to do. Too often tourism is seen as passive. We build things for people to look at, a giant orange perhaps. But the most successful events ask people to participate. For example, Cordo's True Grit event. With its 5,000 people over 2 days, they are part of the event, not observers. Each of those 5,000 people pays more than $100 to run 12 kilometres over 37 obstacles, paying more for parking, food and so on. Let's just say 750,000. It pays to involve people. Now, before we do things, we have to make sure we can get people here and around the place. So let's look at transport for people in Morgan. No bus runs through Morgan. Here we can do things such as organise a bus company to have a regular bus run through Morgan. Once a week would be a great start. And we can help someone set up as an Uber driver in Morgan. There is no taxi here, so it will be a benefit to help someone add to the transport options in town. It would also improve safety in case we have a few too many beers at a barbecue. Uber is a taxi service, only requires a smartphone and your driver is using their own car. This service, or one similar, would be a huge help to Morgan. Let's look at the main street. We have too much real estate doing nothing. Buildings empty, unused and or for sale. At least 8 buildings on the main street are like this, worth probably 2 million or more, but doing nothing. It's not a good look. What are the easiest and most affordable ways to create a busy buzz that lets visitors do things? Let's start from the primary school end of town. There's a well-tended garden area opposite the school and bakery. Let's set up the area for weekend busking, which provides entertainment for travellers. It also provides income and practice for musicians, both young and old. Let's set a budget for this of $100 a week so we can get people to travel here with some return of their fuel expenses. Let's look at the Anglican Church, which seems quite unused but historical. Let's organise some volunteers perhaps to give tours of the building and tell tales of its construction and history for a donation. The hall alongside the church used to exhibit art and is set up for that. This is something we could reinvigorate. Country Art South Australia has a project called This Is a River, where 8 artists in residence live along the Murray exhibiting their work. We could invite them here for some weekends. Let's start looking at unused buildings and think of uses for them. For example, the white building of the Uniting Church. What if we sponsor some young artists to come and paint a river-related mural on it every few months? Or the shed over the road at the Caltex Roadhouse. We could paint a sign with an arrow pointing down to the river. Maybe attach a picture of Steve Horsler knee boarding, or a mist-covered ferry, or perhaps another photo taken by Mark Moxon. Alright, let's head to the next tier. These last two have been about maintaining and maximising what we have, doing a makeover on our town. But first let's quickly reference change again. There are various agents of change. One of them is the council. We have to make sure that the council has a culture of active change. And more importantly, we want council, or some similar body, to be a focus of change, to present a union of purpose. Local council would be the most natural fit, but it's possible that a more local group would be effective. We want our council to embrace change and chase it down the street. Building approvals that take less than a week, for instance. And more than that, let's have a council that hunts down customers. For example, an information day where council explains how building permits work and then gives a discount voucher for attendees to use on their next project. Too often, we can be wary of governments being an imposition to change instead of them being an invoker of change. Every building that goes up means someone is going to put stuff in there. It means more sales for hardware stores, for example, which means council should be leaping at people and giving them a hand to put those buildings up. Greater than this, though, is the focus that council could provide to all the small networks in Morgan that are shrinking and could do with a unity of direction. And help would be providing a consolidated place for organisations to store paperwork and to help with things like treasurer secretary roles. Because as a town shrinks, the same workload exists to run community groups such as Meals on Wheels and Lions, but the amount of people is smaller, so more is done by fewer people, which provides more pressure on those people and gives them more reason to leave. This also means that those people don't have the time to do other things like apply for grants, which would help their individual groups. So this change is a change that means everything. Council could be a huge help here by providing a document storage and minute-taking service and perhaps an advisory role on how to run in corporations and associations, and just maybe they could collate all the different groups in the area, such as the Pelican Point Association, Cricket Club and so on, and supply an officer whose job it is to win grant applications for these groups. One such skilled person could pay for their wages and more by winning grants that would be spent in and for Morgan. I was told earlier today that there is such a person in Canberra called Dawn Stewart. So Dawn Stewart in Canberra is a person to connect to if you want grant applications done. Alright, back to the third level. This is the big stuff. These are direct efforts to hit our 150 people in 12-month goal. We have a target of 150 people, so let's go for a combination of diverse groups. We would need to plan differently for each group and give different support to each plan, but it spreads risk too. Let's start with investment visas. These are visas available to overseas people who invest in Australia. Let's go to overseas to Asia and think about what we have that they may like. Asia is interested in food and learning English and business, Australian culture or business culture. China and Australia have recently completed a free trade agreement which may help. So we put up a plan for 50 Asian students of English, business and agriculture, needing about 10 teaching jobs, supplying intense courses over, say, 3 months. We may need to help build student housing as part of that. The key part is to find a financial partner, investor who wants to be partners with Morgan. The investor would hire the teachers and build the campus. Then this is the idea that we sell, and the community support for that idea to someone in Asia who wants that product. There are people in Morgan that know people over in the Philippines, Japan, Indonesia and China. We aren't as disconnected from the region as distance might suggest. For one example is the Willing Workers on Organic Farms scheme, the WOOFers, where people from overseas work here on organic farms in return for bed and board. Usually these are highly skilled students. But wait, we have more. We need a diversity of ideas so that if one project hits an obstacle, then we don't drop the one basket with all our eggs in it. Morgan could do with a nursing home. An ageing population is one of the big issues of our demography. So we could think bigger than a nursing home. We could add a retirement lifestyle village. We have the land. We even have an almost unused medical centre on the main street of Morgan. We could build a business plan and find a business who would like to build from that plan. So let's use the business visa idea again and head to the UK. This time advertising a plan for a UK medical professional to come to a small country town and set up a general practice and nursing home for 50 patients. I mention the UK because I recently read an article about UK doctors considering leaving the UK, but I was unable to find it again, looking for research for here. But wait, there's more. Immigrants. Some people think it's a dirty word. I don't. I am an immigrant. Born in Detroit. South Australia relies on roughly 15,000 immigrants a year to keep its population growing at 1% per year. If we didn't take in those people, we would experience negative growth as a state. Let's put up a proposal to take in 50 immigrants from Syria. South Australia is slated to take in about 700 of the 12,000 Syrian immigrants recently agreed to. If a nearby town needed refuge, like say Blanchetown, we'd be able to house 50 instantly, from tents on the sporting oval to billets in town. So we could propose a developing scenario from temporary accommodation to more permanent as funding becomes available. I'm not suggesting we put them in tents straight up. Resource this with a variety of funds from federal government down and mixing in various community organisations. But wait, there is more. There are various issues for housing that are small and specific. For example, we have had 200 immigrants living in the area for years. The prisoners we import from outside the area who live in an unfenced jail 15 minutes away from Morgan. Yet that hasn't been disastrous. So perhaps we could add to that and fund a halfway house or home detention arrangement for about 4 to 8 people. I imagine funding from various government and community organisations that help people back to their feet. there is more. Australian youth are being priced out of the idea of owning their own home. They're being priced out of even renting homes. Home ownership has become a dream, except for perhaps the negatively geared. Catherine Yeomans of Mission Australia talks about 400,000 households, not people, households, in dire need of rent assistance. And is asking the federal government for 200,000 social homes to be built. So what we have is small towns such as Morgan with a population issue, small population, decreasing population. And we have the cities with families struggling to survive and paying the rents as the rents increase. So perhaps we can persuade people from the city to come to the country using an economic lever. This disappearing dream of home ownership is a real shame and excludes people from becoming part of Australia, which I think is an amazingly wonderful country. So let's put up a plan, perhaps, for cheap rent for Australian youth, maybe in their 20s. Ask them to submit an application. We want them to bring energy and skills to Morgan in return for low rent. Fields they are in might include teaching, arts, design, music, renewable energy, information technologies. Fields of work that are not heavily impacted by the tyranny of distance. They get to save up a deposit, perhaps buy an affordable house here, and in return Morgan receives their energy, their liveliness. We could fund this using crowdsourcing and online technique, the most famous example being Kickstarter, but we could also bundle this with any business incubator schemes and apprenticeship schemes floating out around there. Let's talk about rivers and sunshine again. I spoke about the Murray River, the Information River, the Highway River, and now I want to talk about a river of power, a current of electricity. Out along the dirt track on the Murraylands Road to Blanchetown, there are a series of chook sheds being built. In the end, millions of chickens will be processed there every few weeks. They need air conditioning to cope with the heat. So a power failure can be fatal to the chickens and the business in summer. The company, Sandtree, was thinking about their own solar farm out there. That may be happening and it may not be. But the fundamental need for the power remains. So let us hunt down a solar farm provider, perhaps an Indian or Japanese company, and invite them to become a foundation block for food industry power in the area and using solar farms. They could sell unused power direct back into the grid and become a reassuring backup to attract other food farm industries to the area. The Clean Energy Finance Corporation could help here, as they've recently been instructed to favour large-scale solar farms in the future. Additionally, the Tesla Powerwall is released at the end of the year. It's a house battery which can store electricity from solar cells. It's a major shift. You will not need power lines. In how solar will be changing the power landscape for every single one of us. Australia is the first country it's being released in. And now for something completely different. We need tools. We need an information toolbox and financial infrastructure tools. To start with, we talked to an information company, Google, Microsoft, Facebook or Apple. We asked them to come help with a small town setting up a comprehensive online presence, while first having to make over the old one. If one of those companies would be willing to send a couple of staffers for a month, then they could help us progress and they would gain information on the problems small town social networks have, which would let them make tools and products to sell to small networks. For example, a tool that easily lets a small town council get all the town's businesses on Google Maps and then links those businesses to pictures and information of the business, and then from those links goes to their online stores. So your Colonial Motel, someone could look it up where it is on the map, click on the link, see a picture of the owners, see the rooms. I want to buy that one, done. And the owners could be asleep in their bed. That's what I would aim for, but I would want the whole town to be consistently that good. So, and I want it all to be set up by one person on the council, so that not every businessman has to learn how to do it, which adds to their workload. Google has recently changed their hotel finder to a different system, relying on commission rather than fees, which helps small businesses, because you're not having to pay until you actually get a result. Which also shows that Google is open to change. Perhaps we could suggest some changes. Maybe we could even talk them into creating a game simulating how to grow a small country town successfully. Second, we need a financial toolbox. We should invite one of the big banks to do the same group visit and send a small team for a month to Morgan. Loans in small towns often cost more, higher deposits are required, more loans are refused, which means because of low growth, it's harder to get growth started. It's a catch-22. We need a bank to come learn from us, and that should help them tailor some tools to help small towns get some impetus, and leave those tools with us to see how well they work. The Bendigo Bank is a bank focused on regional issues, particularly their community bank program, which is a community company, is a franchisee, and after running costs, the community and the bank split the profits, with the Bendigo Bank providing all banking infrastructure and support. Perhaps we could ask the Bendigo Bank to provide more information on their regional services. Both these informational toolboxes, financial and informational, could then be used for other towns such as Cadell and Blanchetown, helping them renew themselves. This plan follows these steps. First, impressions, which is dressing for success. Second is create activities. Third, create a focus group to action changes, perhaps council. Fourth, create business plans for bigger ideas and then find builders from those plans. And the fifth was create tools that help with the informational infrastructure. There are resources out there. For example, Coles has a $50 million fund called Nurture to help small businesses innovate in food production. Not helpful for Morgan, but it means that cash is out there waiting to be used, perhaps by farmers in Cadell. There are ideas out there. For example, the president of the Morgan Golf Club is thinking of a Frontier Golf Day. Bus some golfers up from Adelaide for a day of real golf in Morgan, selling our lack of greens and lack of grassy fairways as a benefit, a frontier to be experienced. In the middle, between ideas and resources, is action, and that's where we come in. We could look at some numbers. We're looking for 150 people. So to house 150 extra people and put up a retirement village and student campus, we need roughly 20 acres of land and $5 million. So we use 10 acres and we put 40 transportable houses on that. Those 40 will house 160 people if they have 4 in each house. 1 5-acre lot for the retirement village and 1 5-acre lot for the student campus. Each home could house at least 4 people if we went with 4-bedroom transportables, which cost about $100,000 on the upside. So if we get 40 transportables, that's $4 million, with perhaps another $1 million to cover connections, etc. So if we rent those out for $200 a week, that's $800 per week, $8,000 per week, which is $400,000 back per year, or about 8% return, which is a good return, assuming maximum occupancy, etc. However, we won't be staying at $5 million. For example, the business plan for a doctor to come and build a retirement village, we could charge $1 million, for which the doctor gets 5-year rental of the medical centre, a 10-acre block, and aggressive support from council for all manner of things. Example being finding a house for the doctor, supporting the doctor's investment visa, helping with planning of the retirement village, and with the medical centre being rented, the doctor could begin work as soon as they arrive. Another plan involves setting up a smaller plan, involves setting up a house or two for home detention. Here we build to and sell them or rent them to the Department of Corrections, who rent them to the detainees. Bingo, 2 houses sorted. A plan to accommodate and train overseas students could involve something similar to the plan for the retirement village. For $1 million, the investor gets council support, the business plan, the land to build their study buildings, and we will have built accommodation for the students to rent. Rents being an entirely reasonable $50, $75 per week per student, which would be per transport of all $200 to $300 per week. We also, which is about 5%, we also have a plan to house immigrants from war-torn countries. From that we go ask the federal and state governments for a hand. If we can show strong community support for this idea, then we can achieve funding, and that makes the plan doable. We would aim for a rent of $150 per week, assuming each family gets a payment at least equivalent to the dollar. Or we could ask Housing SA to get involved as a financial partner with us in a low return, about 5% per annum, but still profitable housing development. Lastly, the plan to help Aussies own a part of Australia. We fund that with the help of a regional bank we hope to get on board, for example at Bendigo Bank. We could also try new methods of fundraising such as Kickstarter, and we could ask business to get involved. And we don't stop asking until we get a yes. We only need one yes. We could start by asking Clive Palmer if he'd like a residential park named after him for giving us a helping hand. The numbers may sound big, but we must remember that we have a few million worth of real estate on the main street costing money and gaining more than nothing. At the very best, we could think of those buildings as making Morgan quaint. At the worst, they tarnish a visitor's first impression of Morgan. Each day we see millions worth of caravans and trucks pass through Morgan. The world is a big place and there is a lot of money in it. So we shouldn't feel too worried about funding because we have the whole world to find funding in. Finally, let me encapsulate. Change is the only constant. Every hour of every day the world changes. We are conflicted about that change. We like to have risk and excitement, but we also like safety and security. We like things not to change. We have ideas such as unchanging traditions being good things. We stifle changes that we see as threatening stability. We see the risks of changing rather than the inevitability of having to change. And there is a case for both arguments. To take risk and to be safe, to bungee jump and also want the safety harness. However, when we can see around us that Morgan has declined over decades, then we need to change how we deal with change. If we do nothing, then we will lose the cricket team, we will lose the Lions Club, and we will lose Meals on Wheels. All three of these groups have had recent close calls, and the losses won't stop there. We need to take some risks, and we need to invoke change with the aim being we want more people to spend more time in Morgan. We will do it the same way as we would if we wanted a person to spend more time with us. We'll make sure we look good. I buy a tie, buy a shirt. We'll ask them to do something with us. Come listen to my presentation. We'll ask them to come stay. Well, come over to a barbecue. Thank you. We're almost there. We're down to a short to-do list. Because from here, we've got a list of things to do. We can just go do them. So, who wants to find out how to get buses here on weekends? See, if no one volunteers, I'm just going to do these. So, spare me some work. So, who wants to talk to the Anglican Church about weekend activities on their property? Perhaps someone here might be wanting to talk to the Uniting Church about using their building as a canvas for river art. You can speak up. We could talk to Kenny and Lucy Fry about putting a big river sign on the side of their shed. Who wants to talk to council about freshening up signage in Morgan? Who wants to ring Uber and sign up as a driver? Who wants to ring the bus lines and see about getting services through Morgan? Perhaps we could get a group to find a suitable 20-acre block of land. so we can actually visualise what we're going to do. Because we're going to need land if we're going to put more people here, and we need more people to stop the decay. So, who wants to do the business plan? Or who wants to talk to Bendigo Bank? Who wants to talk to the investment people, the doctor overseas and whatnot? I'm assuming a 1% chance of success, so we need to ask 100 people, and that's how you do it. So who wants to start asking housing development groups such as Housing SA or the Master Builders Association for advice on developing 40 transportables and 10 acres into a housing project? Concept plans and art would be great if we could get it. Who wants to talk to council about making our main thoroughfares through town our very best? Who would like to contact Google and perhaps other social media companies about organising a cohesive and simple online technology for small towns? I'd advise a high-level contact. Large organisations tend to be difficult to contact no matter how good they are at social media. And that's it. In a month I'll organise another meet and greet like this, and we can check our progress. We have 12 months to add 150 brand new residents to Morgan. Thank you very much. Let's enjoy some sandwiches. Thank you.
Sorry.